John Pletcher is our next speaker. He's a retired attorney and resident of the Old Seward Ocean View neighborhood. He has led an effort to change Alaska Railroad easement policy that he feels is infringing on the property rights of Alaskans. Please welcome John Pletcher.
Just give me a moment, please. So do you want Zap or do you want me to?
I'll signal you. I'll
Okay.
liable to goof it up. Yeah, to clarify, before I get started, I'm not trying to change the nature of the railroad easement. It's being changed by others, and I'd like to maintain it as it has been for a number of decades as used by the railroad. Anyway, if you want to go ahead, I'm going to introduce you to a problem here that's been decades old, and it has been going on behind closed doors and without any public input. The main participants in it are the Department of Interior, BLM, and the Alaska Railroad. The railroad was originally constructed by the federal government, and they reserved a right-of-way across public land, which was a limited right-of-way for the specific purpose of railroad telephone and telegraph. And the ownership of the railroad was transferred to the state in 1982, and that's where the problem started. I said it's decades old. It started in 1982. The railroad has gotten the notion that in the course of transferring those assets, it's able to change the nature of the easement from a railroad telephone and telegraph easement into an exclusive use easement. And under an exclusive use easement, the only one of which would be in existence in any railroad in the United States ever, the Alaska Railroad would have the right to bar other users and fence the easement or the right-of-way off. And there's some other ramifications. The Alaska Railroad is actually a state-owned corporation. It's operated under the Department of Commerce. And the board of directors, which is in exclusive control of the railroad to your exclusion, because you're not included in the discussion, all of those are appointed by the governor and approved by the legislature. As I said before, the problem here is not that I'm trying to change the nature of the Alaska Railroad easement. The problem is that the railroad and the Department of Interior are doing that. The railroad itself was completed in 1923, and it's been operated in a safe manner for 90 some odd years as a railroad telephone and telegraph right-of-way easement, and I don't see any purpose in changing that to something that excludes other users. This is called the rail belt. It's 450 miles long. The right-of-way itself is 200 feet wide. It's 100 feet each side of the center line of the track. Of course, when they first started it, they didn't know where the track was. They just laid it out over public lands, and now the reservation is 200 feet from the 100 feet from each distance from the center line. As I said before, the problem is that the exclusive use easement, which is described in the Transfer Act, but which we don't think is applicable to the situation at hand, allows for the railroad to bar other users, exclude other users, and fence off the area. And that would be a situation that has not existed since the railroad was starting in operation in 1923. The impact on this is to private landowners who are going to lose part of the rights to their own property. An easement is a right of use of one party over the land of another. And you'll find the right-of-way in federal land patents over the whole length of the 450-mile easement where there's private property. The landowners will be excluded from using their own land for things like lawns, gardens, bushes, things like that. Or in the alternative, they'll be charged for using it by the Alaska Railroad. In addition, as I said, the railroad would have the right to exclude other users, and that means the public, and that means you, and you have no input into it at all under the present situation. This has also precipitated permits and fees. the railroad and through the board of directors has decided that homeowners should apply for a permit to have a lawn and should pay for it. And also other users such as windsurfers out and turning an arm, rock climbers, and others should also apply for a permit to cross the tracks. They haven't gotten around to berry pickers yet, but they're working on it. Just crossing the track to get to the other side may in the future require a railroad permit. And if you don't think that's accurate, wait till you see in the future. It's happening and the fees are going to go up. As I said before, no other railroad in the United States has an exclusive use easement. Railroads that were created in Abraham Lincoln's time had what was called limited fee simple rights, which were not exclusive use either. After the General Railroad Act of 1875, all railroads in the United States, including the Alaska Railroad under the Act of 1914, have limited use rights of way. It's somewhat like a utility having a telephone line across your land. You still own the land, but the utility has the right to use that, and you can have grass on top of their utility line. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the basic of it. The change from the limited right-of-way accorded under the 1914 Act to an exclusive use easement is just thoroughly unnecessary. The excuse given officially for making this change is safety. We got to separate people. We got to get them at least 100 feet away from the railroad. But look at Burlington Northern. Yes, they do have a clear area of approximately 25 feet from the center line over to the fence. And I have no objection to that. I think the railroad does need a clear fire area, if you will, for their train. On the other hand, you can see people using the easement there or whatever they own, and they're using it in conjunction with the railroad. And actually, the Department of Transportation of the United States government has a program called Rails with Trails. Yeah, and maybe some of you may know about that. They don't view that as a safety problem. Anyway, we've got the loss of property rights. Right now, the Railroad Telephone and Telegraph, I call it the RTT, allows joint use, and it allows public use. The exclusive use doesn't allow any of that. And all of this change is being made under the Alaska Railroad Transfer Act of 1982 without any input. As a matter of fact, the act is exempt from the United States Administrative Procedures Act. Anyway, let's go on to the next. I think I've covered that. Click. And the change that the railroad's making in the easement precipitates a thought in their mind that we need to have people applying to them for a permit. And right now we have what's called Residential Right-of-Way Use Permit, or RUP. And this form that you'd get if you were a homeowner applying for a permit is easily the most onerous legal document I've ever seen. I practiced for 30 years and I made some really good documents. This one is a winner. This is in a category by itself. It's non-negotiable, requires agreement on the part of the landowner that the railroad owns the easement, which it really doesn't. It allows the railroad to stop the transfer of the house to a subsequent owner for 90 days while they're approving the new owner. What does that do to your land closing, folks? It's a recorded document, and it binds all the future owners. There's also something about small children in it, which I won't. So who's been affected so far? Well, first of all, we have South Anchorage homeowners where I live. That's RUP. The Anchorage owns some municipal parks. I happen to live next to Ocean View Park, and under this program, the municipality will lose its ownership interest. It stands in the same position as a private owner. because their land came from a homesteader who had the reservation, the 1914 reservation. The municipality will lose property rights. Homeowner associations will lose their rights of access. The Talkeetna Historical Society, will see in a minute, rock climbers and windsurfers are being required to get permits. But the bottom one is the one that really takes the cake. Portage Valley. People are denied access to their homesteads down there by the railroad. One gentleman, and I thought this was a tall tale when I first heard it, but one gentleman had some structures burning down on his property, and the railroad prevented the fire department from crossing the track to fight the fire. And I thought that that was a baloney story if I have ever heard one, until I talked to the bartender at the Double Muskie, who was the neighbor, and he said, no, I was there, I saw the whole thing. Anyway, this is a typical place on Jarvie Drive. Ocean View Park's just to the right, happens to be my front yard. If you see, where's my little pointer? There's a truck. See the little pickup truck on the railroad track there? The greenhouse is 94 feet. The closest part is 94 feet from the center line of the track. The railroad wants me to obtain a permit and charge me for my grass and lilac bushes. This is a safety issue, according to the railroad. I have not seen my lilac bushes attack a train, but I'm not saying it can't happen. On a Friday afternoon last summer, the railroad appeared with their railroad cops and Anchorage Sand and Gravel assisted, and they blocked off at Ocean View Drive the easement next to a neighbor's house. I think my neighbor's over here. And this is a new architectural style, which is called Midnight in Syria. That's funny, come on. Okay? Anyway, I'll get better stuff next time. I haven't seen all of it. In Talkeetna, this is going on all up and down the rail line. So we got Portage, we got my house, we've got other places. Here's Talkeetna. They're trying to, up at the Talkeetna Historical Society is trying to preserve this log cabin. It's falling down. It needs a foundation under it. The railroad's preventing them from putting a foundation underneath it. So the building's going to fall down. Here is the Rabbit Creek Rifle Range. I took a tape measure and measured from the railroad center line to the front bumper of the cars. It's exactly 40 feet. You can do it yourself. We got live ammunition. By the way, I'm a reloader, and I go out there a lot. I don't see any safety problem here. We got people walking around with firearms and live ammunition, and the railroad does not think this requires any permit. My lilac bushes are more dangerous. Well, anyway, small children. Here's a small child doing a flag stop. You can see that this child has the common intelligence not to stand in front of the train. And I submit to you that there are many of you out there that have equal common intelligence, and you can work with railroads and you can cross the track without being hit. There may be a few of you that are in doubt. I don't know you all. Anyway, there's more information about this at www.alaskarailroadeasement.info, which is a website I actually created myself in my old age. And we have handouts back here at the table. You can get some more information. And I give lengthy seminars on this topic. I could go on for a few hours, but I'm not going to bore you. Take action, folks. The governor and the legislature have control. The governor has complete control. Your community councils have resolutions. Get with your community council and pass a resolution. Thank you.